All right, we are live, and this is episode. Oh my gosh, I just blanked out on the episode number. What is it, Scott?
226.
226.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, so
Go
episode
ahead. You got to say it, Josh.
Like you say every time. Artcasters. I know I can't believe we've gotten this far. So this is the show where we kind of talk about the ins and outs of cartooning, illustration, and just kind of running your own kind of hustle as an artist. So I'll go ahead and announce where you guys can find my stuff. It's at quarterlystories.com, where you can find a brief preview of a book that's currently being shopped to multiple publishers, but still I'm trying to promote it so you guys can check it out in the interim. And then you can also find my stuff at joshuakemble.com, and then you're on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet, hit that like and subscribe button and that bell so you can get notifications when we're about to go live. All right, Scott, where can everybody find your work?
You can find my work at circworks.com. I've got some sales running. All my digital products right now are 40% off for the foreseeable future until we get out of this mess, because people have a lot of time on their hands and not a lot of money. So I got that going on. And on YouTube, you can follow me. I'm doing a how to draw comics course. This week we're talking about inking. So, and then next week, I forgot what we're talking about next week. And then other than that, I've got my Patreon, and I just opened up, we're doing, even actually tomorrow, I'm doing a corn stream with my patrons for any level. So if you join, even at the $2 level, you can chat with me, ask me questions, do whatever you want. And that's all I got going on.
Awesome, Scott. All right. And then before I introduce our guest, we're joined in the chats by Frank, by Keeman, and by Ronnie. Welcome, guys. And then so I'm excited to have this guest on. He's a New Yorker cartoonist. He's done art for multiple magazines like Playboy, Mad, you name it. He's kind of done it for single panel cartoons. He's also written for multiple television shows and cartoons, and mostly on the humor end. And he also happens to be the president of the LA chapter of the NCS, which is how I met Lars. So Lars Kenseth is our guest. He also introduced me to IPA that like has like it was like the coolest IPA in Santa Monica that I've ever had. And it's got like I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like, I think it had like a pepper in it. Anyhow, it was really insane.
Chili pepper pale ale?
I believe so. Yeah.
They also, that's a regular chili pepper. They also have one now with a habanero, which is even deadlier. It's called the Reaper.
Man.
Actually, it must be Reaper peppers. Otherwise, why would they call it? It was habaneros. Anyway, it's hot.
Yeah. If I like beer, that sounds pretty good.
Spicy beer. Let's make more of them.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into it. Like, one panel strips.
Well, hold on. You gotta hold on there. You gotta give Lars a little promotion here. Where can they find you?
100%.
You can find me at larskenseth.com. Also, feel free to follow me at Lars Kenseth on Twitter and Instagram. I'll be your friend. Thank you very much.
I love it. I love the pitch voice there. That's
my nervous pitch that I do all the time, and more now than ever because I need to entertain myself now that I'm inside alone. So that's
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing about like the quarantine is I think a lot of non-creatives like got really freaked out about the isolation element of it, but I think a lot of cartoonists are just like, wait, I have to be inside all day? That's kind of awesome. Like,
it's like, unlike people who have had jobs like, stock evaluators and anybody with a kind of job where they've had to hide themselves from their own guilt and shame by just barreling ahead at 40, 100-hour work weeks. Now they're at home. I mean, they're the ones we should really be worried about right now because they're not used to being with themselves. But you and I, gosh, we're in this. God, we're all just staring into the void every day.
Yeah.
Thing.
It's his old hat to me. Yeah.
No, I love it. Yeah, we're strangely able to withstand this as I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think we're built for it. We just need more hand muscle relaxants and weird hand grips and stuff that'll help hand pain. But other than that, we're good. So let's get into a little bit of one panel cartoons, because one of the things we were saying kind of before going live, one of the things that really intimidates me about the one panel comic is the fact that you have such a small space to kind of say so much. And so even for whenever I try humor, I've always struggled with that. When I used to do t-shirts for a living, it was really hard for me to come up with just one thing that was impactful, that wasn't cliche, that hadn't been done by a million people, and get it across in one very quick image. And so for me, I've really always admired that. And feel super intimidated by that, more so than by I'm going to do a giant graphic novel.
Sure.
That to me is okay, that's feasible. If I carve at it, I can do that.
Yeah.
But the one panel strip is this luminous threat that just kind of hangs over me. So I always find it really fascinating to kind of first off, what got you into doing kind of New Yorker style, one panel strips.
Yeah.
Where did that interest bring up?
I've been obsessed with New Yorker cartoons ever since I was old enough to crawl. My dad poisoned my mind with Sam Gross and Charles Addams at a very early age, before I could even understand it. And even though I couldn't, there was something special about New Yorker cartoons that I just really latched onto quickly. A single panel. It was I'm being led into this adult world that is in such stark contrast than anything else I've seen. I mean, I grew up on, when I was really young, He-Man and Heathcliff and, U.S. Acres / Garfield. And it's it's a big primary color parade that it's all the same. And then you see this thing in kind of black and white, and a husband putting a gun to his wife's head, Charles Addams, or a sex doll latched onto a guy's dick if it's Sam Gross. And I just was this is insane. And it began a long love affair with these with single panel stuff. And for the longest time, I feel your intimidation, because I really didn't think I could do it for the longest time. I mean, I remember drawing, taking stabs at it when I was I remember as a senior in high school, and it was so crap, and everything was cliche. And the thing of it is that, writing a great novel or doing any great, piece of art, you need to have experience and something to say and a point of view. And that's the hardest part. But I mean, at the same point, the reason why I kind of found it again, because I kind of put all my drawing away. I mean, I came out to LA in the late 2000s, and I was I'm going to try and write comedy. I'm going to try and do stand-up. I'm going to try and do stuff like that and perform, which I love to do. But stand-up was really depressing and sad, and everybody was just a horrible waste of life who really just shouldn't be doing anything to try and make anyone happy or laugh, because they have zero ability to do so themselves. Really stark and bad. But then I was all right, I'm going to shift to writing, and there I found a lot more fun in writing for animated TV shows. And but I always missed that performative aspect. And in a way, doing a single panel is like being a stand-up. It's just you up there, and there's nobody else you can blame if it goes wrong. And I kind of challenge of that. So yeah, that's sort of what covering the long distance. But yeah, definitely that's what brought me there, and that's why I like it. It continues to be challenging and fun. And for me, for doing comedy, it's you want that challenge to stay sharp. with comedy. The scariest thing is falling into a pit of cliches and well-worn tropes, and that's something I try. You know, you brush it off. If you even get as soon as you get the stench, you're just like, fear motivates me and me, and occasionally I get money for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's it. What's interesting to me is like Matthew Diffie, when I got into NCS, he was the president, and him and Lonnie and I were talking, and he was, both of them were like kind of talking about everybody's work ethic in the room, right? And all of them were like, but Lars is like a machine. Like this guy like creates nonstop, like, you know, so, and they talked about like kind of a like just a crazy output that you have for like one panel strips. So like what led to that? Like just sort of building that kind of work ethic for it, for really, just kind of getting it done.
I've always kind of had sort of a workman-like approach to everything I do. You know, I grew up doing, my dad worked in demolition, and I worked for his company often. And it was, you know, work as hard as you can, as long as you can. It was hustle culture before hustle culture even existed. Instead of doing art, though, I was knocking stink pipes off the roof of a hotel that was about to come down. So a little different. But I wear a harness in both situations. What really got me to try to submit to the New Yorker at what I was, you know, 30. I was like, all right. I saw that documentary, and I was just like a very semi-serious documentary about New Yorker cartoons and New Yorker cartoonists and the history of it. And you know, the thing that Bob Mankoff kept saying in his videos, in the videotaped interviews that he was doing with other cartoonists, would be like, just try 10 a week for a year and see, you know, where it goes. It'll help you develop your voice. And I've just not stopped doing 10 a week ever since I started this, and some days I'll do 12. I feel like, I don't know why, I just feel like I constantly feel like if I can work harder than somebody else is, maybe there's a better chance that I'll sell it. And every once in a while, that 10th or 11th cartoon, the one to fill the batch, is the one that sells. So, you know, it pays off that way for sure. And so, yeah, just constant, probably if a psychiatrist was able to unpack it, just a really deep-seated, you know, fear of losing it all, because it's so precious to me. I love doing this. Yeah. And I you know, I don't know. I remember Jay Leno always used to say, you know, he kind of operated like it would all go away tomorrow. And that's how, and you know, whatever you think of Jay Leno, I can understand the sentiment, because it's, there's not many people who do this. And to do it and not go insane or be really sad is it takes a level of persistence that you have to dedicate yourself to it. And, you know, a lot of people don't. I mean, and they can get away with doing, like, you know, you submit 5, you take a week off. It's like, I never do that. And you know, maybe I will someday, but until then I'm Cal Ripken Jr. and I'm just going to try and play every game I can.
Yeah, I think that's actually really valuable, like across all fields, because, like, you know, I've said this before, you know, when talking to people who are like, well, you know, how do you get into illustration or like whatever, and usually that's one of the biggest pieces of advice is, like, you know, it's like talent is a very small percentage compared to just how hard you're hustling and just how often you will not take no for an answer. Like, you're right. If you hit a door that's locked, you got to find like a side route, whatever way you can kind of carve and chip away at it. You have to kind of be persistent. And then also, like, yeah, you know, in art, it's like, it's a strange thing that it feels like people almost view it as separate from other entertainment. Whereas, like, when you're in LA, it's like, you know, there's people doing pitches all the time. I know you do them as well. And it's like, you know, in the process of doing pitches or like submitting to publishers or whatever you're doing, like you're going to face like a crap load of no's. So it's like, if you're not constantly out there kind of banging on that door, like the likelihood of like a crack appearing where you can get in is pretty slim. And then aside from that, like once that crack opens, like, you know, like you were saying, like you got to kind of work like you're you know, going to lose it, because that's a high probability.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's and I think also just it's kind of funny because the endless rejection that you get in the TV and film industry, which I got to experience, you know, almost a decade of before I even started submitting to the New Yorker, really prepared me mentally for that struggle. You know, I'd hear about like David Cypress, you know, waiting 23 years before he finally, you know, got his shot. So, I mean, that's what I thought I was up against, some years. And thankfully, that didn't happen. And it was like, you know, one of my first batches, I sold 2, and I was in, and it was just the right time and the right stuff, thankfully. And you know, but you know, and that's the weird part about it. It's like, that's because I feel like, you know, and then Mad was really cool to me. Playboy, I sent him cartoons, and I sold 3 full pagers to my first, you know, time I submitted to them. It was like, what's going on? Like, everybo's like hugging me all of a sudden and treating me nice. I feel validated. I don't even know what this feels like. I feel dirty. I don't like it. It seems strange. You know, but when you get beat down in Hollywood, there's nothing quite like it. It's really, you know, and the stories you hear are just brutal, and everybody's insane, and you know, so
Totally.
It helped too, just with like, you know, in some ways, you know, doing cartoons is just like a creative life preserver. I get to do. It's not collaborative. I do just me. It's my stuff, my cartoons, and you know, I love that.
So, Lars, I have a question. So, when you're submitting to, say, New Yorker, are you surprised by what they accept or what they turn down, or have you been doing it long enough that you've got a pretty good idea what they're looking for, or you know, and you know, I would assume maybe Playboy's looking for something different than New Yorker or whatever.
Yes. The same thing as New Yorker, but with boobs.
Right.
No, it's yes, you absolutely. There's certain. It's hard. I can't say, you know, emphatically that like, okay, I know exactly what they're going to buy every week. The one thing that's funny is that, you know, they'll talk a good game about not liking, you know, puns. And I've heard things like, oh, David doesn't want to see any more animal cartoons. And then I'll hear from people that like, oh, I sold, everybody's like, oh, there were like 3 animal cartoons sold this week. I'm like, well, what the hell? You know, so like the rules and they can seem sometimes like they can't be broken, but they almost always are. So I think really it's like what I've sort of come to feel is that like, if I'm having fun drawing something and I think it's funny, I'm just going to send it in, even if I don't think it's totally right. I've sent them so much stuff that is just so wrong for them that I couldn't help it. I just, you know, and I think some of that's good too, because even if you send them stuff that's not right for the New Yorker, if you send them something that's funny, that'll make them remember you, and at least as somebody who gave them a laugh, and that'll make them more excited to look at your stuff, you know, going forward. I mean, that's sort of how I look at it. But yeah, every once in a while, like, I mean, there will be mandates that come down, and you'll meet with Emma and she'll say, yeah, we're not buying any more robot cartoons. We're full up. So I'll wait like 3 months. And then if I have a really good robot cartoon, I'll throw them at them. So yeah, it's a constantly shifting landscape of what they have, what they need. And obviously COVID-19's thrown everything out the window. Now it feels wrong if you're submitting anything that doesn't have people spaced 6 feet away from each other. You know, it's like you have to rethink a little bit. And also, like, that's the other thing. Right now, that's my biggest question. Like, I don't know what they've bought. And it seems like a lot of the stuff that they're buying for the daily too, which is their online daily cartoon, is stuff they've pulled from people's batches that they did it with me too. And they're like, you know, can we use this for the daily? Normally what you would do is if you saw a topical thing the night before, you'd write about it, draw about it, and send it in, and you'd know the next morning and have to jam out a finish really quick. But with a magazine, it's like, all these topical cartoons are making it in now because of what's going on, and we know that it's going to be this way for the next few months. But then at a certain point, I mean, even just as a creative person, it's like, how many more cartoons can I draw about this? Like, I don't want to draw about this anymore. And I mean,
you got some good ones. I was looking at your page. There's some good ones. It seems like just you know, I mean, obviously you don't want to make too much light of it, but that's what we do. It's what we do, and that's, you know, it helps people get through it. You know, it's just find some humor in it. But I mean, it seems like it's just you know, a wealth of material.
It really is. I mean, it's like, and it is true. I've come up with a lot, and there's so many more that no one's ever seen. And, you know, it's just because it's crazy. I mean, this is like, you know, this is one of those moments that I know if I go back and I look through my, you know, my compendium of New Yorker cartoons from the beginning of time, that, you know, you go back through World War II, you know, there's some cartoons that just stand out. I think there was a George Price one where it was like a guy writing "I'm sorry" on the side of like a what looks like a nuclear bomb, and it's like, yeah, you know, that's like, you know, it's not even funny. That's the other thing. It's like you're processing, you know, in a way through humor, you know, the best way you can, which is sometimes funny, sometimes a little sad. And, you know, there was one in the magazine this week. I think it was a new entry. Emma's brought in all these new people, and it was two goldfish who separated in separate bowls. One, you know, they each had like a little fin on the other one. And it's sad, but it's also like, yeah, it's fish. So anyway,
that's pretty good. You know,
Scott, sorry about that.
No, I was just going to say real quick on the same topic. Sorry, Josh. So, I mean, something you kind of alluded to is that, you know, what's going on right now isn't something that's it's not like some other, you know, political events that are just, it's in the moment, but then people are going to forget about it as the next thing comes along. Right. But this is something that's going to be in our minds forever in history. I mean, it's going to be a big page in our history book. And like you said, a lot of those cartoons that you see from World War II or whatever are still around. So what you're producing right now, I mean, I you know, it's probably going to be out there forever, and people are going to, I mean, it's going to have some longevity to it.
It's crazy. You know, it crosses your mind for sure when you're drawing. I mean, you know, you're like, is this, I mean, there've been a couple times I've thought, like, is this something that's going to appear in, you know, Ken Burns III's documentary about this time? You know, and you don't know. And I mean, and that in a way is, it's emblematic of the fact that, you know, single panel cartoons have a rare kind of, you know, touchstone in that way. I mean, you know, political cartoons obviously were, you know, precursor. But I mean, you know, what the New Yorker's been around for so long, you know, since the Great Depression and prior to, that's like, you know, they've been commenting on every major thing that happened in the 20th century, and, you know, we're here in this boat. And it's yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity, which is a crazy thing to say. And you know, and it's, you know, as you know, this is almost why I'm kind of sad Mad isn't here anymore, because what you were saying about, you know, humor is a way to sort of like deal with these kind of moments and find some funny in it. It's like Mad was so good at that, and they were like, and also like they would be okay. They would go there and they would do stuff that might be a little uncomfortable, but you know, yeah, it was, you know, that it's I think it's really important, especially now when, you know, everybody's so serious and political and, you know, angry about the way things are, and rightfully so most of the time. But, you know, either way, it's like, you know, I'm a big believer in, I forget if it was Lewis Black or Jon Stewart, you know, humor is what separates us from the terrorists, which is not the situation we find ourselves in now, although humor is what separates us from COVID-19. Let's not forget, this virus cannot laugh. And if we've got that on him. So anyway,
I love that thinking about it too. So one question kind of about your process for kind of coming up with what you're going to do. Like, you know, do you have like notebooks just full of random lists? Like, do you do kind of like, you know, spaghetti at the wall sessions where you're just kind of throwing out, like you were saying, I used to have that problem with puns all the time with t-shirts.
Yeah.
where eventually I just did for like 2 months, I just was like, you know what, screw it, and just leaned into the puns and did like the worst puns I could imagine. And but it's like it is hard to kind of get that junk out. And so how do you kind of go about that? Like, how do you spill that stuff out? How do you kind of generate your ideas before you're, because you're creating like 10 a week.
Yeah.
Like, are those just 10 all the ideas you had? I'm imagining not, right? Like, there's probably a whole bunch of
all the ideas I have. I have a list that I work off of, but I hate almost all the ideas on it. Anytime I go to it and look, I'm like, ugh, this stinks. Like, this is like below the bar. Like, if I was really desperate and I had nothing. But most of the time, so I use a couple different methods. I love prompts. I think prompts are great. I have a couple different things I can actually show you here. I have the Storymatic, which is just a bunch of different cards with, this card says footsteps. This card says member of the clergy. And I just sit there and I think about, 2 random prompts and, and I just wait. And then, if 2 minutes, nothing comes to me, I'll move on to another one. I also have these dumb things, Rory's story cubes, and they're sort of like pictographic things. I don't know if you can actually see this, but they're, I'll just take one out. They're basically just like these little dumb cubes where it's just like, oh, there's a little face. Oh, wait, there's an apple. Oh my God, a flashlight. And I'll roll them around like a damn idiot. And, I'll get alien bridge. What does that do? Anything? No. All right, keep rolling. I also have, I made an Excel document and I wrote a little formula to randomize from selections from 2 different lists. And one list, the document's called the Moneymaker 5000, incidentally. And one list randomizes a list of cartoon cliches. So like Desert Island, therapist's office, stuff you're going to see in a New Yorker cartoon it always is there. And then the other list is just keywords and ideas and things that I've run across that I think could be used in a cartoon. Like, I'll pull it up right now and I'll just read a couple things out of it. But basically I'll cycle through that. I'll do anything. I'm just like, I'm trying to come up with any edge I can. And, to be honest, most of the time, even though I'll have a list, I'm cramming on Sunday and Monday to get it done. And it used to be I actually just only drew on and thought of stuff on Monday, unless I had a specific idea during the week that I thought I should write down to kind of paint myself into a corner. So I had to do it all on Monday. And that actually worked really well for a while. And then I just kind of got burned out. So now I've spread it over 2 days, basically. And I really have, and actually last couple weeks, because I've had the time, I've worked ahead a lot. And I actually kind of like that. It makes me feel a lot less stressed. So I think I might do that. But also, so going to the Moneymaker 5000 again, here are some things I've written down. Algorithm bias. I've written down speculative bubble. I've written down Howard Rourke, lead character in The Fountainhead. I've written down, let's see, what else? Just speed is checked by blank, like those signs. I just wrote with a kickstand and just stuff with a kickstand. And I don't know. And it's like some of it is just stupid and it's never going to work. But every once in a while, you'll come across a gem and I'll think of like, this is the other thing that happens to me. I don't know if other people feel this way, but I get ideas I get like multiple ideas in short bursts. So like if I have an idea, I'm almost certain that I'm going to have another 2 or 3 ideas in the next like couple minutes. So I try and stop whatever I'm doing whenever I'm in a moment like that to just kind of let my mind kind of think and cycle through all the crap that I've seen and heard in the last, couple days.
So
that, So
no, I was going to say, I have a question. So you get an idea and then you've got 2 or 3 different variations on that idea. Mm-hmm. And they're probably 2 maybe too close to maybe submit to the same person? Or, I mean, do you figure out what's the best, or do you say all three and then just...
It depends. Honestly, most of the time I'd say I send all three. Like if I have, sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 different ideas for a caption on the same image, and I'll submit all of those.
Okay.
If I really think it's strong. If I think it's just kind of like a whatever cartoon, or like I should just pick a lane here, and if I can envision Emma looking at it and reading it and being like, I don't know why I did 3 of this stinks. That I kind of like, all right, well then I'll just do 1. I judge it as it comes, but by and large, if I feel like I've got a good take, I'll just send them all. This week I had 2 cartoons that were like, I had one cartoon that I did about a walker, like an aged person's walker. And then I had another walker.
Not an AT-AT. Not an AT-AT, right?
AT-AT. Come on, let's debate cartoon.
So I got 2 walker ideas, and I was like, yeah, I liked them both. And I was like, I can't choose between my babies. You're both going to Harvard. So anyway, it's a weird process, and I've become really fascinated with the whole concept of ideas and where they come from, and the mechanics of them and when they happen to me, and it's just kind of fascinating, because there's so many people out there who can barely think up original thought. These are the 100 an hour a week stockbrokers that we were talking about earlier. They're just staring into the abyss of themselves. They couldn't, wit is something that just doesn't come to certain people, very well. It's a skill, and it's really something that, you can hone it, you can grow it, but some people just can't. You don't even have a little bit to begin with. That's what I'm starting to believe anyway. So
one of the things I wanted to say, going back to some of the prompts that you're using, one of the biggest questions or comments that I get is that from artists is like, I don't know where to start, I don't have it, where do you get ideas, all that stuff. And those are such great prompts. So if anyone has like issues with like art block or creative block, I mean, some of these techniques that Lars uses, just these are great ways to kind of spark some creativity. So.
Yeah, they help, and I mean, it's sometimes it's just be open and keep your ears open and your eyes peeled, and you never know what you're going to find. I mean, the world is a funny place, and I live in Santa Monica, which is basically like a New Yorker cartoon in and of itself. I mean, the amount of wealth and sort of over the top. Sense of superiority and privilege. I mean, I'm very lucky. I live in a New Yorker cartoon. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to make them.
Yeah. I think that touches on something really important too, which is like, there's a couple things involved in it, which is, I think what you were talking about with spurts, like for me, when that was my primary kind of breadwinning thing, like just doing like it was shirts, but it was very like, they weren't kind of your typical shirts, and so like to find that thing, there was like this aha moment after doing like prompts and like maybe making lists. And like you were saying, it was like, I thought I had a method, but it didn't really end up with a method other than just kind of usually like one day of kind of banging the head against the wall, being like, I have nothing. And then the next day, just something kind of popping up through that process. But what's weird is when you'd have those moments, like, at least for me, it's like, I would hit like 5 really good ones, like all at once, and then go like another 4 weeks or whatever with nothing. And then just hit those 5 again. It's a weird kind of gamble.
I don't know I don't understand it. It's a personal thing, and I would bet that there's not everybody's the same this way, and that other people's, whatever the sine wave is, for some people it's longer to hit great ideas, and other people it's tighter and shorter. But it's a fascinating thing, and the key is really just being ready when it happens. And it's like if you have a good idea, a lot of people have ideas. And usually they're bad, but when they're waking up, or like in the middle of the night, I plead with you, keep a notepad or something by your bed or your phone, and so that you can write in the notes section. Just get it down, because there's some that like you'll lose, and then who knows, like you never know when you're going to have something that's going to resonate, even something you think is good, and you never know when you're going to find something that'll really hit a nerve, and that's really the challenge and the fun of doing single panels too, because it's like a succinct idea that pops in your head is all that it is. Like, it doesn't require any more thought or development usually, other than the kernel of the idea. If I have an idea for a TV show or something, there's a lot of different parts that I have to still work out, even if I think I've got a good foundation for an idea. But when it comes to a cartoon, it's all there.
There's a few other things you mentioned too that I think kind of tie into stuff like Scott and I talk about a lot on this show, which is like you were talking about like working on, and I know now you work on shows you've developed as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But there is something interesting about like that process when you were getting into it, where it's like you're working on other people's stuff, and then you have this thing that's completely yours, where you get to kind of concept it and like write its success or its failure, like all the way.
Absolutely.
And I've talked about this, like, because this mystified me when I first went in the NCS, where it's like I meet other cartoonists every once in a while. I used to live in Portland, so there's a ton of cartoonists out there, but I rarely was in a scenario where they'd all congregate in one room, where it wasn't a convention where you're all hustling trying to sell.
Yeah.
And that was like the one common thread I found with everybody there, was that nobody wanted to talk about the big corporate thing they were doing. Everybody wants to talk about the project that they completely spearhead, like their own like thing. And I thought that was such a cool, like, unifying thing with like, like across the board, where I think there's some weird just semblance of like, I don't know, like content. I don't know what it is, but there's something really cool as an artist about being able to like fully author your own work.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a special thing, it's, I mean, and it's not to say that collaborative stuff, can't be great. I mean, and even the shows that I'm developing myself, there's always a team. There's a, production company or a co-producer and the network. And, there's all these different, it's still collaborative. And, the thing with, but the thing with doing cartoons is, it's such a solitary thing. It's like writing, it's like if you're writing on your own or drawing on your own, you're in your own head, you're in your own world. It's meditative, really. I mean, it's something where it really is just like, that's what makes it special. It's a fight with yourself in a way. I mean, it's either a meditation or a big fight. It just depends on the day and depends on the there are some days you need to bang your head against the wall and get it done. And you might not be super proud of it in the end, but you did it. That's what you got to do. And there are other days where things flow and it feels right. And they're both great. I mean, those are both great kind of ways to go. But either way, you're kind of communing with something. I'm getting a little weird here, but you're communing with something, a spirit, an artistic spirit that, I don't know. I think I'm biased because, like I said, I would just, I still have my Charles Addams book from when I was a kid. It's right on my standing desk, and I look at it all the time. It's like my Bible, and I've had this reverence for it for such a long period of time. It certainly feels special to me, and I feel like anybody who takes the time out of their life to do what we do, to draw and be creative, it's it makes total sense that you'd feel a closer sense to something that you authored than something you were necessarily even if you were a meaningful part, but just a part all the same.
Yeah, and I think there's fulfillment in the part, but there is something really just unilaterally awesome about just when all the elements are your own thing.
Yeah,
there's no
You're right.
There's no corporate to crush it.
Yeah.
So all right. With the execution and the style that you use, I like absolutely love your style. I think it's great. And I hope this doesn't sound bad. It kind of reminds me of the Fisher Price people, but in kind of the most awesome way.
Yeah, you're right,
and I'm wondering how did that develop? Like it's a cool style. It's actually like I think there's a lot of people who are like younger cartoonists who might look at like simplified styles and be like, no, I like, this is the guy, and they'll point to like the guys who are doing these fully rendered crazy things,
right,
and not realize like how hard it is to pull off like a very simple style with like limited line, and just like how much the expressions matter. So like I think that works really well, and it's definitely unique. It's like I recognize your stuff if I'm reading anything and it's in there. I'm like, oh, Lars.
You know what?
Where did it come from? How'd you develop it?
So it was a weird process, and it's kind of funny because it wasn't the first style that I came to when I was, because it's actually not really how I used to draw. I mean, I grew up. Listen, when I grew up, and way into like when I was selling shows, like I was drawing like the shows I watched when I was a teenager. So, Family Guy, Simpsons, that's the stuff I would draw. I had a style that was very reminiscent of that. And, the first few times I pitched at networks and stuff, and I would bring art to show to kind of like back up my animated pitches. They would look a lot like that, accessible. And then, when I started to really get serious about single panel cartoons, I had a talk with Matt Diffie, and he really encouraged me to try and find something a little bit more left of center, because he was like, first of all, this feels like a network animated show. It doesn't feel like something in the New Yorker. And I was trying my best to kind of adapt it for that, but it wasn't really happening. And I acknowledge that. So I'm not somebody who studied art formally, if you can believe it. I've just always loved to draw. So I kind of took that opportunity as sort of a challenge to sit down and just look at a bunch of different style books and a bunch of different, pieces of inspiration. I looked at like this book of like French cartoons and situations. I looked at some Pakistani like illustrators, and I was just trying to look and find anything, and and I ended up with these Botero looking things eventually. But when I first went in to go meet Bob Mankoff, I had a completely different style, and one that was totally reworked, and I was really proud of it. And Matt Diffie kind of coached me there, and he kind of helped me and gave me exercises, be like, try this, try that, try that. And this thing that I ended up having, they didn't look completely dissimilar to the characters I have now. They were squat and kind of round, but they had these long, angry, pointy noses. And they kind of were like reminiscent of Ed Steed, really, which is another reason why I'm glad I didn't go this way. But when I brought them in to, just terrified, to the 38th floor of One World Trade, and I brought him into Bob's office, he loved the jokes, but he said, I hate this style so much. And Matt was so convinced he was going to love it. And I was just kind of like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah, it's just like, you got to get rid of this aviary proboscis is what he called it. And like, okay. And he was like, but you've probably been drawing like this your whole life. And I'm like, funny story, I've actually only been drawing this way for a week. And so, I cynically went back, and I started to think more about my comedy and the stuff that I like to do. And I'd always loved to take it to like Homer, Peter Griffin, and like all the cartoons I loved as a kid. And at that time I was working on with Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis. They had this movie in the 80s called Strange Brew. These characters, Bob and Doug from Esquire, and they ended up adapting it for an animated show. And I was on the writing staff, and
was that produced?
It was, yeah, it was made. It aired in Canada, but they're all still sitting in the can. And I'm telling them, like, man, these all still hold up. You should try and tell them to Netflix now that no one can make anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a great, fun experience. I got a chance to work with a lot of really good writers and artists, and and the look of it was perfect for me because it was like that, and it was dumb. And Bob and Doug are two characters who are dumb characters written very smartly, and that's what I liked. I like tonally playing with stuff that could be a little dark, but doing it in a way that would not because I'm not a negative person. I'm pretty happy and gregarious, and so that's why I kind of ended up with these little pill people, Fisher Price people, lozenge people. They get so many different monikers. It's like they're like zombies in Walking Dead. Are they geeks? Are they walkers? Are they anyway? So yeah, I landed on this just thinking of I told Bob at first, I was like, I kind of just drew characters that I thought kind of looked like me. So that's what I did. They're just these lumpy little, innocent looking things. And, and sometimes they get up to stuff that ain't no good, but you can't help but cock a smile because those guys, they just look so silly.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect explanation too of what is so striking and funny about them, because just the location of the head on the shape is it makes it funny. It's just they're hilarious. So that's awesome.
I have to tone it back because it's because Remnick, and I get it. It's the New Yorker is about the line. It's not about the drawing. It's about it's about the look of it and what the words are, and not mug too much. Now that said, there are plenty of cartoonists in it now that mug the hell out of it. And, for some reason, they just get to do what they do while, some of us get, put in our place. And that's fine. It's fine. But, what I always it's important to find. But that's actually a great skill to learn, too, when to show restraint and when not to how to not always take it to 11, because that's sort of my internal go-to as I like comedy that's fast and furious and sometimes too fast and too furious. Sometimes Hobbs and Shaw, but no. Yeah, no, I like big, dumb, funny things, and but I also, I watch the news. I try and read a lot, and I try to stay informed and learn things, because the other thing that if you want to do single panel cartoons, do anything you can to increase your breadth of reference. If you've read as many classical works as you can, study history, there's nothing you can't learn that won't help you in writing single panel cartoons.
That's awesome. So, okay. Have you ever kind of had moments where you've written a single panel gag? Because I have a few friends who write comedy, and we've had a couple of them on here. But one of the things for writing comedy that's weird is the unclassifiable part of comedy. So there's different categories of humor, right? And New Yorker's definitely on that higher level of humor. Although I've seen them go low, which I always enjoy. Absolutely. When the low-hanging fruit gets into the New Yorker, it actually kind of makes me smile.
He makes they just let him do what he wants. I mean, in some ways I envy him. In some ways not, because it's you basically if he wants to draw a big giant donkey penis, he can do it. Not what I'm dying to do, Josh. I'm not. But the point is, he has that as an option. He's got a big donkey penis on the shelf that he can pull off and use anytime he wants. Meanwhile, I have to find a more refined way to conduct myself. No, but they're definitely But continue your question. I apologize.
So anyhow, so those different levels of humor, and I've noticed yours kind of runs the gamut too, where it's you'll do stuff that's straight up just a straight up kind of obvious funny joke, which is awesome. And then you'll go the higher realm, the kind of mid realm. But then there's this realm that's weird and unique. I feel like Matthew Diffie nails this realm a lot, where there's some things that where you hit and it would be impossible to kind of explain why it's funny. It's just funny. And it's, and like, there's no like kind of explanation for it. Like the text and the image are funny together, but there's no like formal reason why they're funny. Have you ever kind of had those pop up when you're running through ideas, like those ones where it's like, I don't even know why this is funny, but I'm going to do it because it's funny?
There definitely there definitely are cartoons like that, and they're weird because you want to be able to quantify it. You want to be able to say why a certain thing is funny or not and analyze it. There are just some times where, that just doesn't happen. I mean, there's like, I think this falls into the category. There is a Steed cartoon where a guy, a couple is walking through an open house, and they get to the second floor of the house. In the middle of the floor, there's this giant from like waist up, kind of smiling and taking up the entire room. And the caption is the guy saying, "Well, I guess that explains the penis on the first floor." And it's just completely absurd. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. There's no grounding in this whatsoever. It's just madness. And I mean, that's on a very, penis is there, so I guess that's why it's funny. But I mean, still, like, really, like, I don't know. It
made me laugh.
Yeah, well, maybe that. Well, see, that's why it's great, because you can't quantify it, but it still makes you laugh. And I wonder. Diffie is just the thing that really impresses me about him is that he draws so. He has a sense of realism in the way that he draws that I could never do.
Yeah.
So he had a cartoon once, I remember, and there's nothing like a video podcast where people describe cartoons. I mean, this is, you guys have really latched onto something here.
It could be only audio, so I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so he has this cartoon where there's like a fir tree, like a Douglas fir, that just looks like a tree, sitting in the front seat of a car. And I say sitting, it's a tree. It's like the most realistic tree you could ever imagine. And instead of a pine tree scented air freshener hanging, it's like a silhouette of a person, like a human being.
It's so good.
It's so great. And it's like, I could never draw that and have it ring the same way, because it just looks like it actually happened when you look at his art. But
he's crazy talented. My favorite of his is I think it's Bart Simpson wearing a Che shirt, and I just thought that was like,
that's an iconic cartoon.
Obvious, but it's great.
I know he's made. I can't imagine. Like, look, if cartoonists were able to, buy Malibu houses off their cartoons, like if we bell curved it, that would be his Malibu house cartoon. My favorite cartoon of his that he's done, probably not many people have seen, but he did it in his book, and it's called it says Real Crazy Straw. And he didn't draw straw, he draws like a very photorealistic combat knife. Crazy straw. It is a really crazy straw, because you see, the thing is, Josh and Scott, if you try and drink a beverage out of a combat knife, you might die. You might just lacerate yourself. But either way, it's hilarious. Imagining a man lacerating his face on a thing, that's just classic good old family comedy right there.
I adore that. Jim Lujan said this is my other favorite Lars.
Oh, hey, Jim. Oh, because he has a character that's named Lars.
Lars Lazarus.
Yes, Lars Lazarus. Yeah, I'm almost wondering if that was inspired by Lars.
I wanted to ask him that, but honestly, I feel like that's awful gauche of me to ask. I mean, how many Larses does a person know? I mean,
that's true. It's a fair point. There's only really one or two Larses I know, and actually only one.
Yeah. So we're a dying breed. One day all the Larses will be gone. No one will.
Well, what? Yeah, in the 80s, like the Scots and
there's no more
70s and 80s, the Scots and Joshes just dominated the universe.
Yeah.
So we have the
You
common
guys had
names.
your day in the sun is just crushed. The sun never set on the Josh.
My name's gonna be like a Mildred pretty soon. It's just gonna be all old.
No, Jim says yes. So now it sounds like I did inspire this this character. Well, thank you.
That's awesome.
Jesus Christ, that is an honor. You're lying. Come on, really? God. All right. Well, now I want money. I'll have Weintraub Tobin contact your people as soon as humanly possible.
Cool. So, okay, do you have any like tips for people who like might be dipping into one panel strips or like thinking about it? Like, are there any things you learned that you would tell yourself like when you were starting, like, along the way?
I think I would say, a lot of the advice that I got to start was very good advice because I got it from Matt Diffie and Bob Mankoff and, people who had done this their entire lives and knew what to do. So I really benefited in a way that, a lot of people wouldn't. But the basic advice that I got that I think rings absolutely true, draw as much as you can. If you can draw 10 cartoons a week, do it. If you can't, as many as you can. If you really want to try to get into single panel, try to form a voice and a style and try and think about it that way. Because if you do want to distance, and I didn't really appreciate this, I guess, as much when I started, because I didn't at first think that it really mattered, having a style that kind of looked a little differently. But, it sets me apart from other people who draw in a more traditional New Yorker-y way. I mean, there are certain people who draw perfectly fine in the New Yorker, but don't necessarily have a style. And that's okay. You don't necessarily need one, but I think you'll sell more and you'll do better. And you'll probably have a little bit, more of an authorship of it than if you can try and find your own lane. And it might not be comfortable. I think I benefited because I didn't really have a style that I was doing my whole life that I felt really strong and tied to, Lonnie Millsap, who I introduced to the New Yorker, he, Matt really, he gave him the same advice he gave me, kind of change up your style a bit, but Lonnie didn't really have to change all that much. I mean, his pretty much the same. But, I think it's a different regime now. I think Emma and David are more open to just like, whatever. If it's funny, let's not like, I don't know. I'm putting words in their mouth. I don't actually know this for a fact, but I just feel like just given what's in the magazine now, some hilarious guys like Johnny DiNapoli, who draws like a really kind of innocent, straight line character. It's like not totally dissimilar from but he's so funny and he's had some success and Lonnie's had a lot of success. And, it just goes to show you don't have to, and this is something that Matt said to me very early on. He said, because I was really working hard to try and but, find a style, he said, you know what, ultimately it's going to be you who has to draw these cartoons. You got to find a style that you really want to do and sit and do the cartoons you want because you're the one who's going to do it. So I would say just do as much as you can, try to form a voice and bounce them off people, show them to people. Mm-hmm. And if you happen to know somebody who does single panels, show them to them. Or, the other thing you could do is, start an Instagram account, start uploading cartoons, maybe get a batch together or two so that you can kind of like take a little bit. And if you're, don't even worry about submitting them to any magazine, just like try and put them out there and maybe try and befriend New Yorker cartoonists or other single panel cartoonists that you like and respect on Instagram. And a lot of times, I mean, I've had some interactions with people that I never thought I'd get a chance to talk to, it's just been really great. Like Dan Ferraro, who did, who does and did a single panel cartoon for decades. He is Bizarro. He was at the NCSLA. I didn't really know him well, so I didn't really talk to him much there. But like, we have a correspondence now that's like regular, and he's super cool and has given me so many like nice, compliments and advice. And you can and just have fun with it ultimately, because it's like, this is the best part of my career, that I get to do these things, and it's like, they're just fun, and it's just, I don't know, as a person who, if you love comedy, you're going to love working in single panel cartoons, because you get to explore a new thing every time. You're moving from one joke to the next as fast as you can, and the harder you work at it, and the more you try and put yourself into a creative chamber, the better off you'll be. And so I mean, that's really, it's not too hard. Just work at it.
Nice. I like that. So you mentioned the NCS. I feel like we should get into that just a little bit. So what would you say for like people who are in the LA area about the Order of Cornelius that we can say? I know there's some things we can't speak about.
Right. Obviously, the mass killings are something we have to keep under our hats.
Yeah, of course.
What we're looking for, we need 5 newborns a month so that we can sacrifice them. So if you know of any who are interested in becoming a cartoonist, then bring them, and we'll put them all on the altar and slaughter them before Cornelius's ghost. But other than that, if you're interested, you can reach out through our website. There's an email link there, and you can communicate about like showing up to a meeting. That's always a great place to start. To be honest, we're not going to be having many meetings for the future, but but once this all settles down, we'll be back to normal. And you'll come, and everybody's really kind and friendly, and you'll get a chance to meet some people and talk, and and it's just it's a lot of fun. So I mean, I would say if anybody's really interested in being a cartoonist and nerding out with a bunch of people who are hardcore nerds about comics, that's something that you should check out.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend finding something like that in your area. Like, I know a lot of people like who listen to us aren't in like California or in the LA area, and it's like there are National Cartoonist Society chapters all over the US. And then if you don't have that, like drink and draws, things like that, one of the coolest, most inspiring things, especially let's say you're trying to do single panel strips, or like in my case, trying to do long form graphic novels. Doesn't hurt to actually make friends with people who are doing this, and not in the sense of like, hey, like, can you help me out kind of friendships. Because I feel like that's one of the things I love about the NCS. It doesn't feel like that there. It doesn't feel like the typical kind of LA, like, what do you do kind of thing.
Yeah. What can you do for me?
Exactly.
Very Joel.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like it's good just for like getting inspiration to kind of surround yourself with people who are kind of fighting a similar fight. And like the fight to make your own thing in art is like, it's worth it, but it's also way more fun when you're in it with a bunch of people having the same fight. And like the cool thing is, if you stay at that long enough, just meeting other people, you naturally end up surrounded by people who are pretty successful at it, because people start succeeding that, and right. It's a weird thing, but it's awesome.
That's true. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. So cool. Do we have anything else we want to talk about in regards to like any other questions, Scott, about New Yorker cartoons? I mean, it must have felt really, it's got to feel really cool to be in the New Yorker. It's a legendary publication, I
still have to pinch myself sometimes, because it really is like, it's the one thing that, like, working out here in TV, I'll call my parent and be like, hey, guess what? I got a pilot presentation with this studio. Well, it's not a studio, but it's an offshoot of the studio. Anyway, we got that, and then deal's going to come through, and it's not going to be on TV yet. No, this is stage one, and then we're going to move on to this and do a script. It's like you can't, like, relatives back home who are unwise in the ways of Hollywood will just be like, oh, that's nice. I think he's going insane. But I called my mom right after I got my first sale, and I was like, this is Lars Kenseth of the New Yorker, and she just said, shut the front door. And she's never sworn in her life. That's as close as she got. And I almost got her there. And that's the power of print media, my friends. That is the power. Because it's what they understand. And my dad, he grew up in New York. We're all around the house all the time. He grew up in North Jersey, and they just, like, his parents were, very erudite people. And they, this is, I have so many academics in my family who send me emails, and just, I've impressed so many, if for no other reason. This is just it. It's a calling card to let everyone know that you're smarter and better than everyone else. So
exactly.
Obviously that's why we do it. No, it's bizarre, because I am humbled every day I do this. And the coolest thing of it is, once you're in that club, everybody, especially in, like, my age group and younger, is doing it. They're just, like, the nicest people in the world. Everybody's so supportive. We're all on a big group Slack together, and we'll do video draws and stuff like that. It's a community unto itself, and it's really just, I'm very privileged to be a part of it. And it's ultimately, though, it's like anything that comes from it, career-wise, is great. But personally, it's just, like, such a huge thing for me, because, like I said, it's like I grew up on this stuff. It was my Bible. And so to have it to be part of that, be one of the disciples now of Eustace Tilley is insane. So yes, it's fantastic.
I think it's just so amazing that you were interested in this for such a young age, because I can't imagine too many people would be reading the New Yorker at that young of an age. And
I know it was so. Is my parents? They didn't know what they were doing. My dad, like, I'm just gonna show them a bunch of Sam Gross cartoons, and here we go. Let's roll a dice on this first one. Didn't work out. All right, let's try another one. No, it was, I mean, it's weird. It is weird. It's like, but you know what? It's a weird small group of people anyway. Single panel cartoons. It's just such an interesting little group, but it's subsisted. It's still going. The fact that it's even still here is kind of remarkable,
Mm-hmm.
And now it really feels like, everything Bob Mankoff's been doing through the cartoon collection and stuff, trying to get things licensed, trying to open up new markets. We've got, there's lots of places to sell and be seen. And I don't know. It's a weird little club. And I really do like it. It's like, there's some things, even if you're not getting all the eyeballs, and even if, you're not necessarily I make, stuff for the masses on a daily basis. To do something a little different, a little left of center, a little niche is kind of fun. So I definitely appreciate it for that.
I love it. Sweet. So any other questions, Scott, you wanted to ask Lars?
If I started asking more questions, we'd be here all night. So I mean, we could probably like to have Lars back at some point. We could
guys, it's so fun, and thank you so much. It's really a treat.
Awesome. Yeah, we'd love to have you back on, maybe to talk a little more about just kind of pitching and writing. I think that's a whole other element of stuff you do. But to me, it's like like I was talking about with the group of cartoonists, I always feel like cartoonists want to talk about the thing they're doing, not the thing they're collectively doing. That's true. So, like, I figure this would be the best thing to kind of highlight. So, awesome. Well,
it's a lot of fun, and God, if next time I'll pull up some cartoons, maybe even, and we can go through why they weren't selected and how wrong David Remnick really was.
You know what though? Like, one of the things I love about the New Yorker and following, like, I'll actually plug your Instagram here, but you guys should follow Lars's Instagram.
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, there we go. Now
So one of the things I love about that is you actually get to see some of the cartoons that didn't make the cut, and often like they're hilarious. Like, and I did have a question about that before we close, which is, so is it, do they have the rights to everything you've sent? Is there like a waiting period till you can kind of shop those elsewhere?
No.
Or can you shop them elsewhere?
They have pretty much, if I don't sell them that week, then I'm free to move on. So that's
beautiful.
Yeah, it's great because there's like Airmail, which is a new venture run by Graydon Carter, who used to do the Vanity Fair for many years. They do cartoons like this. They do that are basically exactly like what the New Yorker is looking for, maybe a little bit more international. But yeah, and then if it doesn't work there, I've tech cartoons can go to Wired now, and like and they're all areas.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's and each one's a little different. Wired does color, and it's neat. I really So they don't. Some publications, I don't really know a lot about the rights of stuff. I actually, there's, if I sell something, and chances are I'm probably, the only thing that gets tricky is if someone buys something and then they don't use it. But I've found out that even the New Yorker, like everyone they've held on to, they've published eventually. One, it took them 2 years to finally get into a magazine. But they put it in, so it's a weird waiting game sometimes.
But that's cool. I think that makes sense. So like the cool thing is when you're building up that catalog, you're also building up a back catalog of stuff that you could eventually sell to other papers or like other print or online media that might like fit different niches. So that's awesome.
If nobody buys them, then I'll be buried with them when I die, and then I'll take them with me to Valhalla.
But I think you guys should all check out Lars's work. It cracks me up. I always enjoy seeing that stuff on
Thanks,
daily.
Josh.
So awesome.
You're the best.
All right. Cool. So
this has been fun. Sorry, you guys have a
it.
thing I'm sure you have to do now at the end of the show. Or is that
not really?
Oh.
But we will kind of wrap it by just reminding everybody where they can find our work. So let me pull up. Did the Lars link get deleted? Why?
No, I think I might have.
We'll just throw. Okay, I'm gonna throw this up.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Boom. Okay.
Yeah, I just followed.
So Lars, where can everybody find your work? What are you working on currently that you want people to kind of pay attention to as well?
Let's see. What am I working on currently? Currently, I'm working on cartoons, and I do it every day. Hey, why wouldn't you like to maybe check out my Instagram? It's very fun. And you can keep up with all Lars' stuff on larskenseth.com. And maybe if you have enough time, check it out on Twitter. Too, sometimes I write things and they're around too. But anyway, this is Lars Kenseth, and I'm from Channel 5 Blues. Signing off. Shine.
I love it. All right. So you're on my channel. You know where to find me. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit that bell so that you can get notifications when we're about to go live. But, and you can check out my stuff at joshuakemble.com. Every once in a while, though, like even if you hit that bell, it's going to be on my channel. It's on Scott's channel. It gets kind of confusing to follow it. So, Scott, where can people find your work, and how can they kind of keep track of this bouncing show?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. So you can find my work. You can find my work at circworks.com or Circworks on YouTube, where, like I said, I've got a series going on right now where I teach people step by step how to make comics. And then I'm also on Patreon, where tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Corin stream with some of my patrons, and I'll continue to do that while we're in this. So yeah, so that's what's going on with me. And like Josh had alluded to, we've got this thing, the Artcasters. We do it every week. But the confusing part is that it kind of bounces back and forth between Josh's channel and my own. So if you want to know exactly where we're going to be, the easiest way to know that is to join our mailing list, and we don't spam you or anything like that. It's usually about 30 minutes before we go live. We send out an email, and then that's got a link, and then you can click on that, and you can join us maybe in the chat live, or you don't have to chat. You can just watch. Some people just like
a hip gorilla concert.
Yeah.
It's you get a little, it's 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Get across town. Band's up. What are you doing? Bring in some drinks. Gotta have fun. Listen to the band. Going for the opening band? No, I'm not. Me neither. I heard they're lame. Yeah, you're right. We're going for Artcasters. That's what's up. Here we go. All right. Saw the show. Go to sleep. Get 8 hours. Get up. Have some breakfast. Not too much. Take a shower. Take another shower. Take another shower. Take another shower. Take another shower. Take another.
Wash your hands while you're doing that.
Wash your hands.
I love it. All right, Lars, thank you so much for being on here. Appreciate it. We wanted to get you on for a while. So, yeah. All right. Thanks to everybody who joined us in the chat. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.